Welcome to the Higher Expectations Podcast with the Higher Advantage. Well, you're going to hear from Ron, Josh, and Michael, a multi-generational family of real estate experts in Southern California. We're going to uncover valuable gems and insights on how you can grow your wealth, enjoy life, and we're going to share a little bit of positivity, inspiration, and motivation along the way. Let's get right to it. Today, my co-host is Caryl Hier.
Hello. It's good to see you all again. It's been a couple weeks.
Yes. And our very, very, very special guest, the matriarch of the Hier family, Caryl Hier. How you doing, Mom?
I am doing just well. It is so nice to be here. This is fun. Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Thank you for coming on our show. We got a lot to cover. So, and fun stuff.
Fun stuff.
to
I
cover.
like fun stuff.
A lot of experience, a lot of wisdom to share.
Yes. Oh,
all
yes.
that.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
So
Because
let's
I'm
start-
old. I'm really old.
So let's start from way back when.
Okay.
When your family first migrated to the Antelope Valley. When was that?
In the late 1880s. And then they homesteaded in 1890. And there was 3 brothers that came. And they each had 9 children, so I always told everybody I was always related to somebody, so don't talk about anybody around me. And then 2 of the brothers stayed, but then they had a drought, and so one brother had enough money to leave, and they went to the Oxnard area, but the other 2 brothers stayed in the Antelope Valley and raised almonds and wheat and barley, and the wheat fields were on like 30th and Avenue P, and at 14 years old, I was driving the grain trucks back and forth from the ranch, and I had my first car when I was 12.
That's nice.
And so, but I had been driving for like 2 years because I could drive the tractor to the store because we didn't have to go on the roads because we just went through the orchards, and my dad would put blocks on the pedals so that I could reach them because I wasn't very old. And we'd go down there and I'd pick up whatever my mother needed from the store, and then I'd come home. And
So I was thinking about, in the 1880s, there were all paved roads out here,
oh,
right?
no, there was no paved roads. Even when I was young, the only paved road in Quartz Hill was 60th Street.
Yeah.
And it was paved all the way down to Avenue I think it was down there because during the war, where the prison is down there, at one time they had the pilots from Britain were being trained there.
Wow.
And so on Sundays, when we would go to church, we'd see some of those guys, and then we'd bring them home, and they'd spend Sundays with us and have dinner, and it was quite something. Of course, it was during the war, and I didn't know bad things were going on. I just lived on the ranch with.
Yeah, just a kid.
Yes.
I didn't even know that story. That's crazy.
Yes.
Good one, right?
No, it was very interesting.
So right now you live at the beach.
I live at the beach.
We don't blame you for living at the beach. How long have you lived in the Antelope Valley?
Well, I was born in 1938.
Okay.
So, and I lived there until I was 60 years old. Then I moved to the beach.
Okay.
So, but all those years.
All of my kids think you just lived at the beach forever.
Right. Oh, no. I was a desert rat. That's what my dad used to call us, the desert rats.
That's good.
So I think your reason for moving to the beach is, one of the best reasons ever, which is...
Well, it was good for me. My dad didn't like it when I moved, but I just wanted to live at the beach. And the only way I could afford to live at the beach was to buy a mobile home, and everybody thought I was nuts. But now they think, oh, Mama was smart.
What a good move that was.
Yes.
Who doesn't like visiting grandma at the beach?
Right.
Everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Very good. So you had a farm, the Goaty farm out there, and
Well, we didn't call it a farm. We called it a ranch.
The ranch, Goaty Ranch Farm.
So you're a
Hey,
rancher or a
what,
farmer?
there were some cattle somewhere out there too.
Oh,
right?
yes, we had cattle. Out on 90th and L, there was a lot of range area. We had cows out there, and we had, we used to name the cattle. We had one cow that looked like my mother's hairdresser. We called the cow Harriet.
That's good.
It's funny.
Yes.
They also, go ahead.
And they also, the cows, they had their the salt licks, And I mean, I didn't understand what they were, but they licked a lot because you could see where they had licked it. We had that, and then there wasn't any running water out there. We were all in big troughs, and my dad would go out there and fill up the water there, and then. And those troughs during the summertime, my dad used to bring one, and that was our swimming pool.
Oh, nice.
And then we also had the reservoir too, but we were older when we did that. Yeah.
So were the cattle dairy cattle or
No,
meat?
Meat. Yes, yeah. We always had lots of good meat. We ate well.
So did you sell those locally or export them, or were they just
You
for
know
personal
what?
family use?
No, because we had too many.
Yeah.
No, he sold them, but I don't know where. And as a side story to that, we had all those almonds, and when the shells, we would grind them up, and they were sold for cattle feed.
I remember them picking that up.
Yeah. So that was a good profit for that.
That's good. They also had honey too.
Yes. Oh yeah, we had our own honey house with the bees and the also, and then it burned down one night.
Yeah, that was sad for me because when your brother Bob would take me in there, and they tell me don't touch anything, and I couldn't help it. So the slats inside the bee boxes would come out, and they would put them in this vat. It's called an extruder that pulls the honey out of the slat, and then there's a faucet on one side, and they would put it in jars. But when the honey was in the slats, I used to run my finger right through the honeycomb and put it in my mouth, and it's like, this tastes so good. I would spit out the wax, and Bob said, Ron, quit doing that. I didn't understand why, because they were reusing them. If I was ruining them, then I was like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 or something like that. That's the best honey. And I thought it was almond blossom honey for like forever. And I found out that it's sage.
Sage,
And
yes.
sage honey is
Yes.
my favorite. I like lots of kinds of honey. Sage is like my favorite, and that's what that was. I always thought it came from the blossoms from the almonds, but they put them out way out in the desert where the sage was blooming, and then the bees would gather the nectar and make their honeycombs. They'd bring the honeycombs in. That was pretty cool.
But even now, you can go through the desert and smell the sage.
Oh yeah,
it's
after a rain, that's the best.
Yes, yeah. It smells real. I can almost smell it like right now. It was because it's so fragrant. It was good.
It is.
Yeah.
So what else did you do on the ranch?
But I love living on the ranch when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Not when I got older, because when I got older, I wanted to be in town with all my friends. But early on, we loved to live in the barn with my dad. Well, we didn't live in the barn, but we
You had a house in there. You told me.
We did. My dad built us a playhouse in a tent. We had our own little stove, and we used to cook our chicken noodle soup in there. And we loved being in the barn with my dad because my dad was fun. He was always fun. We didn't want to be in the house. I mean,
he was a fun guy. I just remember there was a rubber chicken. There was a rubber chicken hanging from a tree.
Yes.
Right outside the barn.
Yes.
And I always thought it was kind of funny.
Was it to scare ghosts away? What is that?
I don't know. It's just like maybe like don't take life so seriously. I don't know. It's just he liked to have fun.
Oh yeah.
And then that one, and then he did some other stuff too. But I remember this one time he had that little squirrel tail attached to like some kind of a gyro.
Yes.
You put it in a bag, and then it looks like a squirrel's moving around in a bag, and
Oh, that was the toy for the kids because
he
it was
brought
very
it, though.
entertaining.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
But we also raised turkeys. We had lots of turkeys when we were kids. And one night, a whole bunch of dogs got in the turkey pens and just went all around and broke all their necks.
Oh,
And then we had to do something with those turkeys. So we took them to the barn, wet them all down, and called Swanson's Chicken Pie Company. And they came and got all those turkeys. And I have never eaten a Swanson pie again.
did you name your turkeys too?
No, I didn't like them. The turkeys are dumb, No, they taste good, but they're not smart.
I feel like I'm learning something like new every 5 minutes about your life. That's crazy.
This is
I
great.
didn't even know you had honey on the ranch. I didn't know that. I didn't know you raised turkeys. I heard a little bit about the cattle, but this is all new.
No.
Oh.
And back to the reservoir thing, it was not sanitary.
No.
We didn't have any chlorine. We didn't have any of that
you
kind of stuff.
It wasn't very deep, but you could not see the bottom.
Oh, you couldn't. But it was probably 10 feet deep.
Oh, I couldn't see the bottom. I
No,
was a
you
kid.
could no. And then sometimes the hired help would, after they would get off work, they would go skinny dipping.
Oh.
And we'd go over there, and they couldn't get out. And finally, we'd leave and let them go get out. We'd come in
That's funny.
and we'd come on the tractor. We would do it. We could go all over the ranch, and we had lots of acres, so we could go lots of places.
Yeah. So the main ranch had irrigation. That would be the east of 60th, north of N. But on the other side of 60th, the west of 60th, they called it the dry farm.
Right.
And
But even the home ranch was dry farm for a long time.
oh,
But out west, we had to go out there and water the trees. And my dad had an old truck that had no door on the driver's side, and then he had a lever, and with a tank on the back, we'd go and put water for each tree. And then when I went to get my driver's license, I had to go in that truck, and it was old, and there was no padding on the seats. It was just the springs and gunny sacks on top.
sounds like a ranch tractor.
Yeah, it was.
Sounds like a Dr. Seuss machine. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, we get in there to get my driver's license, and the guy there says, "I'm not getting in that car with her."
I wonder why. No doors, no seats. What's wrong with that? You don't have any roads.
So
doesn't
I didn't
matter.
get my driver's license for a year later when he finally got a new truck. So
Where was the DMV at the time?
It
Was it out in
was-
Lancaster or somewhere else?
no, it was in Lancaster. It was on Yucca and right off of Lancaster Boulevard.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
That's probably pretty close to the high school.
Yeah, almost everything was close to the high school when we were kids. The town ended at 10th Street West, and actually at one time Lancaster Boulevard was called 10th Street. It was, you had 10th Street West, you had 10th Street East, and then you had 10th Street. And
10th Street North and South.
yeah, well, it was mixed up. Then somebody decided to name it Lancaster Boulevard, and that was good. But you still had the other streets were 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, whatever they were, but now they got, different names. They Oldfield and Milling and New Grove and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But at one time they were all just numbers. So
we had a great time growing up with you as our mom. As we were getting older, you went to work at Paraclete.
I did, but I had already had experience working in a school. When I got out of high school, I worked for the Lancaster School District for about a year and a half, and then started having a family, and then I didn't work until. Well, I went in
remember.
the store too, but
We had a store. I thought I was in the 4th grade, but what? how
no,
old-
no. Well, it was. I went to work there in '77, so you were.
You said I don't know. You said I was like 7th or 8th grade or something like that when we got the store.
I was 1974, whatever grade year that was. You were probably 13, 14.
Yeah.
But anyway, then after a couple of years, then I went to work at Paraclete in '77, and I left there in August of '99.
Wow.
So I had 22 years
22.
there. Yes,
And you met a lot of people while you were at Paraclete, right?
I met lots of people. I have 2,000 kids besides my own 4, and all my grandkids, my great grandkids. I got 2,000 other kids.
So when she was running Paraclete High School,
I loved running that school.
They used to call her Mom.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure who started it, but I want to say maybe it was Andre Miller started it.
Yeah.
And then everybody started calling her Mom.
Yeah.
So when she would get home, we'd say Mom. And she just like go right over her head. She's like heard it all day long. And she's just immune to that word. So we, once in a while, we'll call Caryl. Oh, yes. So it was pretty funny.
That's true.
It
That's
was
very
funny.
true.
And there was a bunch of people that benefited from my mom being out at Paraclete. And they still stay in contact with
Yep,
you, right?
Yep, lots of them do.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's pretty cool.
Yep. They come visit me at the beach. They take me. They stop on their way through. They take me to lunch, or they take me to dinner, or something. Then they'd be on their way, but they still come.
That's pretty nice.
I love that. So, I mean, with how many people that you've helped, I mean, that have come across your, I don't know, doorstep, right? At Paraclete that you've helped, and even just in the communities that you've been part of. I mean, is there anything that, prompted you to be as kind and helping as you are? I don't know. I mean,
I am my dad's daughter because my dad was like that. Even if he didn't have anything to do, sometimes he'd just take his truck out to Mayflower Gardens and drive around till he'd find somebody that was sitting out there, looked lonely. He'd get out and go sit and talk to them for a couple hours, and then he'd go home. And my dad had a lot to talk about, because he was the youngest of 9 kids, and he was the only one that got to go to college. The rest of them all went to the 8th grade, and then that's all. And so he felt very fortunate that he could do that, and he tried to help people all the time. And it works. Like my favorite saying is, kindness never goes out of style.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And just be kind, because it works wonders with whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So
opens doors, does all kinds of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so,
smiles and kindness. Yeah.
And my house was always open to all the kids. If they needed a paper typed, guess who was typing papers? And then, or they needed some. Sometimes they'd come. They say, this one kid came and he says, "I'm going to come to live with you." I said, "You can't come live with me." He says, "Well, I told my mother I was never coming home." And I said, well, He says, "What am I going to do?" I said, "I guess you're going to sleep in your car." So he went, and then I went in the house and called his mother and told him where he was, and then the next day he went home. But that's the kind of relationship I had with those kids. I was like their mother, at school, and so that's. And it was a fun job. It was always fun. I didn't make much money because working in a Catholic school, you don't make much money, but the rewards are still coming.
That's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Pay it forward.
I remember something that really stuck out to me about someone that's helped you was during the fires. Oh my gosh.
Oh yes.
The entire freeway was shut down. No in, no out.
Right. But one of the kids that lived at my house when he graduated, he had nowhere to go, and he came and he lived at my house, and then he became a sheriff. And when this fire came, he called me. He says, "You need help?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "But nobody can come. The freeway's closed." He says, "I can come. I'm coming in the sheriff's car." And he came through all the fire and everything and picked me up and took me to his house.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I picked her up from there.
Yes.
That was good.
That was
amazing.
Yes.
Those are the dividends that being kind to people and helping anybody that you can really
That's right. That's
pays
right.
out.
Because if they think you're in trouble, they'll come help you.
Yeah.
So
very good. So you did a little bit of traveling over your lifetime, Anne?
Yes. The first trip I went to Europe was with a gal friend of mine, Bishop Clark, who was then Edward Clark, as a priest, and he was getting his doctorate in theology in Rome. And so he invited us to come over there. And so off we went, these 2 girls, we don't know anything. And we get over there, and we were in London for 3 days, and then we went to Rome, and he picked us up. And that was in 1987. And it's quite a ways from the World War II. But you could still see the destruction there. It was just, it was really amazing. But anyway, we spent 9 days in Rome, and he had a papal audience all set up for us, so we got to go see the Pope. And then we went to Paris, and we went to Venice, and we just traveled all over. And then when we got back to Rome to come back to the United States, something happened to our plane, and we couldn't go. And then somebody says, "Look, got hijacked." Oh no, we don't want that. But anyway, we finally got on the plane, got to Dulles Dulles Airport in Washington D.C., and then we flew from there to L.A. and somebody picked us up. But it was long hours. We'd been up 50 hours.
Oh.
And we were tired.
Yeah.
And then I got home, and the kids that were taking care of my house and my dog said, "Oh, sorry, Mrs. Hier, your dog died."
No.
He was sick before I left, so that did not surprise me. And
That
Ron,
was me.
yeah, Ron, they had called,
You did it?
They had,
No,
they
the
had
dog
called.
had
I'm kidding.
issues. I mean, he couldn't barely move, and every time you moved him, he'd growl trying to bite you, and he was
Yes.
in pain.
No,
I was like, I know she
no.
wants to say goodbye, but it's not fair to the dog.
No.
And I took
The
Rascal
kids wrote me this
to the
note. I
vet.
tried to feed it scrambled eggs and all kinds of stuff, and it would no. And then the next time I went was with Bishop Clark and Margaret Neal and I. We went to Germany and Austria, Switzerland, Liechtenstein. We just traveled all around. We stayed in convents, but all these times, the first trip and the second trip, we didn't stay in nice places. They didn't have air conditioning, but we were on the cheap. It was not, a good experience, and we're still young. And then the third time I went, it was for Pete Perez's wedding. He was getting married in Barcelona, and he had taken care of my house at one time also. And so and then two of the other kids that had stayed at my house, they wanted to go with us. So I said, sure, come on, I'm not, pay your own way, I don't care. So we all went to this wedding in Barcelona. And we sat at a table with somebody else that could speak English. And she says to me, she says, I was in the Antelope Valley one time. I said, oh, did you go to school there? Yes, I did. And I said, what year did you graduate? And she said, 1956. I said, but that's my year. And I said, what's your name? And she told me her maiden name. And I said, I know you. And she says, what's your name? And she, oh, I know you too. It was so funny to be in Barcelona and find somebody you knew.
So my mom knows everybody around the world.
Yes.
So she goes to Paris and finds people. She's in an airport in New York. She runs into people. She goes to, Catalina's not that far away. She goes there. She finds people. Doesn't matter where she goes. She finds somebody that she knows or knows somebody. There's like 1 degree of separation with.
Yeah,
with
because
her.
see, I like to talk. When you got to talk to people, you find out all this stuff. And then the fourth time I went to Europe, I went as a representative of the Carpinteria Chamber of Commerce. But I only found out I was going to be that the day before, and I didn't have a list of names, and I had 56 people that I was in charge of. And that part I didn't like, but we sure had a good time on that trip. We were in Turkey and Greece and in Rome. And then when we got to Rome to come home, the flight that was coming to us there was an ash problem, and so it couldn't come. And so we sat in Rome for 8 hours, and there was so many people there that you did not dare leave your seat because you wouldn't have a seat when you got anything. So, and then by the time we got to New York, of course, our plane had left there that we didn't our connection. So there we sat for 8 hours in Terminal 4 in New York, and no food, no nothing. And I see this guy come, and he says, I went over to him and I said, you can open your restaurant. He says, no, I don't open until 6:30. I said, I got a lot of people here that they're tired and they haven't had any food. That guy went in there and fixed us food. First thing he did was bring out orange juice and gave it to everybody.
That's nice.
I was so happy. I was so happy to be home from that trip. But it was all fun. It's just an education,
Memories.
Yeah, and when you get home, you are really grateful.
Yeah.
So, and I went on a few cruises, and I've had a good life.
Yeah.
I really have.
That's good. We learned a lot from you. So you ran into a few famous people over the years. Tell us a little bit about that.
My favorite is Tommy Lasorda.
How'd that happen?
Because, we had a problem at Paraclete with the big shed that we had that held all the track equipment had burned. And so we needed to make money to get more. So the baseball coach thought he contacted the Dodgers and see if we could get somebody to speak. And one night, Tommy Lasorda called him and he says, I'll come. And the next morning, he's all happy. And this one coach comes in and he's kind of goading him. And he says, you thought it was Tommy Lasorda. It was me that called you. Oh, my gosh, it was somebody. Coach went back in the office and called Tommy Lasorda. Yes, I did call you. But anyway, he came, and then we had our big fundraiser at Palmdale Cultural Center. And since I was the coordinator for this event, I got to sit next to Tommy DeSorda for dinner. And
Cool.
it was very cool. It was very cool.
I don't know who took Tommy back to his hotel, but Jerry and maybe Andy.
Yes, Andy Lynch and Jerry.
Maybe Tom Lynch drove him over there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Was that what it was?
Yes.
That's pretty cool too.
Yes, and they took
Baseball
them.
players.
Yeah, the baseball players. They were 16 years old at that time, that. And here Tommy DeSorda. They were in the same car with Tommy DeSorda. That's pretty cool,
For sure. And there's another guy. Ronald Reagan. You could. Went to a fundraiser with Ronald Reagan one time.
Yes, he was running for the presidency.
So he was already governor of California at the time.
Yes, and he was at the ABN, and my mother bought us tickets to go because we didn't have that much money. That was only $50 at that time, but it'd be like $500 now, But I got to see him, and then one time, one of the shuttles was landing, and Tom McMurtry had let us. Father Caffrey and Carl Ladensack and myself.
Tom McMurtry was
the pilot of the
pilot.
747 that carried the shuttle.
That's pretty cool.
And so we got to stand on top of the NASA building when the shuttle landed. And then after all that, Tom McMurtry let us go sit in the cockpit of the 747.
Wow.
That was really cool. That was nice.
That's
It is
cool.
cool.
Don't you have something signed from him? A photo?
I have a big picture. It hangs in that spare bedroom. Yeah, and it's signed by him. Yes.
Yeah.
What is it a photo of?
The shuttle, the 747 carrying the shuttle.
That's so cool.
It is. It's
he
very
signed
cool.
it. That is cool.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of community involvement too. You were with the Lions Club for a little bit. You had you worked with the Little League, Pony League. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, probably the biggest volunteer job I had was the Sacred Heart Barbecue, running the dinner.
Yeah.
Because that involved lots of people, and I had to get 300 people to work to do, because somebody had to be clearing tables and bringing water and doing all those things. And you kids were small. The first one, Ann was like in a stroller, and here we are, still all working. And putting the salt and pepper shakers on the tables. You kids all worked. That's where you all learned how to work at a very, very early age.
Yeah.
And sometimes we'd serve 5,000 people.
Oh wow.
You had a lot of meat and a lot of potato salad and a lot of rolls and a lot of butter and lots of stuff.
Lots of salsa.
Oh yes, and we made the salsa in our garage.
Yeah.
With these big crock pots, and we had the meat grinders because you didn't find the tomatoes in the can that were all crushed. They were all big, You had the big cans, and you had to open all these cans, and then put the things in the meat grinder, the chilies and everything, and chop all the onions. And there would be so many people in our garage all working.
So we had talked about this before. So this was in the first weekend of August.
Yes.
So it was nice and cool in the garage.
Oh, yes. Oh, right. No, it was not nice and cool.
No. Only 105.
But we started early in the morning. And the one year that I remember, we made 57 gallons of salsa.
The salsa. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Yeah. I remember a little bit when I was, I forget how old, 8, 9, 10 years old, out on the ranch. They had like a backhoe, digging a hole. They would line the hole with river rock and then build a fire in there, get it really hot, cover it with more river rock, and either start another fire or put the meat that was prepared in flour sacks, wrapped in gunny sacks with a kind of like a modern-day twisty tie, but it's made out of baling wire with a hook on it. Dip that whole thing in a pot of water to keep it moist while it's underground, and then put all these, I don't know how many, hundreds of pounds of meat that went in there. And then they covered that. Tons. And then they covered that the day before. And they let it slow cook for, I don't know, 24 hours.
24 hours,
something like that. And they came out, and they put that in. That's so good.
Yeah.
I don't think it's hard to replicate that.
Well, but one year it didn't cook.
Oh.
Oh, then they built a big grill, and they were trying to, you got all these people waiting for dinner, and now you got all this, but they got it there, and they pulled it off,
Yeah. Some people ask us, like, hey, how did you do that? I said, you know what? It's really hard to replicate. And I think because once you start that fire on the bottom, then you cover with dirt, or they put the meat on top of it, and then you cover it again, and then you cover that smoldering smoke,
Yes.
and the heat kind of
Yes.
permeates the bag, and you get a little bit extra flavor of that
Yes.
smokiness. And that's
Yes.
really, you can't replicate that in any other way except doing it like that.
Right.
And that takes a lot of time and effort and
Yeah.
work and space and all kinds of
No.
stuff. People.
We used to put an extra bag in there. We would buy it, the extra bag, and then so we would have the extra meat because that's what
I
we,
know.
we
You
like.
made taquitos,
Oh
you made
yeah!
sandwiches.
Oh
you
yes,
made
yes,
all kinds
yes.
of good
They
stuff.
make
That's a great beef.
good taquitos. Yes. So
That's good. So Josh and Michael is going to take over the little show here for a little bit because even though I've heard all your stories, I want to hear more. I learned some more stuff today.
I learned more stuff already. Jeez.
And Josh and Michael want to give a little bit of get a little bit more insight from their perspective of you.
Okay.
So Josh and I are going to change seats.
Okay.
And then I'm going to come back in a little bit.
okay, all right.
right.
Okay.
How are you?
I am fine. This is like fun. I get to tell my stories all over again.
Yeah. A lot of those stories that you heard, Ron has told me over the years, and I've heard them from you personally. And I just love hearing them again because I feel the passion, I feel the love that radiates off of you. And you said something earlier, that kindness, just being kind. That is something that when I first met you, I felt automatically that I was drawn to you because of that. You were always so kind. When I was coming from just being used to one family dynamic all my life growing up, and then I started dating Christy. And then when she introduced me to the family and I met you, you out of everybody stood out to me and made me feel so loved and so welcomed. And not in addition to just you, but Ron too. And I can see how Ron is very like you in that way because everybody that has been introduced to the family, from myself to Ollie to Cecilina, you have always made everybody feel very welcomed and loved. And that's one thing that will always be in my heart forever, is how you made me feel that first time.
Thank you.
I just want you to know that. I don't know if I've ever told you that before, but that made me feel very appreciated. And I just want to say thank you very much for that.
Oh, you're quite welcome because I love you all. I love you.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to bring up, with you is that one of my fondest memories is coming down to Carpinteria with Christy. This is prior to kids.
Yeah.
And when we first started to, visit you down there when we were first dating, at that point in time, my favorite thing was, it was right after I was working a corporate job at that time. So I wasn't quite, in real estate at that point in time, even though Ron was kind of putting it in my ear. So when I would get away from the corporate world and I needed time to de-stress, I would always tell Christy, hey, let's go visit your grandmother. And I loved it because I still remember the very first time that I came to your home and I sat on that couch and you had that sliding glass door open, and that sliding glass door had that nice sea breeze that was coming through, and I just was in awe. I was like, man, this feels so great being here. And you looked at me, you said, you like it? And I said, I love it.
I always tell everybody, that's Josh's seat right there.
Yeah, it just, that always brings back good memories and stuff. And every time we come out there to visit, we always have a good time with you and stuff. And we always make sure that when we come out, we go get some lunch, whether it's at Delgado's or some the Shack out there in Carpinteria.
Yes.
She's educated us all about Carpinteria, and one thing that she has done for us that I really love, that I thought was very special, and something that I will always hold as a very fond memory, is that when in Carpinteria, when each family member or each person got married and brought into the family, she paid for a brick to be installed in Carpinteria. So Christy and I have a brick. I believe Kelly and Ollie have a brick, and I believe Cess and Michael have a brick out there. Yeah. So it's just, it's beautiful that you did that, and it's out of the kindness of your heart, but it's just like now, we can always go back and find that brick and look at it, and it's just.
Which reminds me, I have a new great grandbaby, and I have to get a new brick. Yeah.
Grant.
Yeah.
I think
No, Grant has one already.
Oh, Grant has one.
Well, yeah, but now we have a new great grandbaby that was born just this last week.
Oh, who's that?
That's right.
His name is Hank Beebe.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yes.
Ryan and Allison.
Ryan and Allison,
Yeah,
congratulations.
so I have to go get another brick.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Those are good kids. But so one thing that for me is that when I first started dating Christy, I met a lot of Paraclete kids because Christy went to Paraclete.
Yes.
And one fun thing about Paraclete is that a lot of the people that I've met from Paraclete, almost all, are very well educated. They're well spoken, and they're really good kids.
Yes.
And they're very determined with what they want to accomplish in life and stuff. They're very goal driven. And I love that. And one thing that I would always bring up is they would always bring up Caryl, Grandma Caryl. Well, I call her Grandma Caryl. But they would say, Caryl, we love Caryl. The Aquinos specifically, Jordan and Justin Aquino. Jordan is a superintendent. I think he does a superintendent for a school district.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he's a superintendent, but he does a lot of the budgeting for the school district. So he's worked for quite a few school districts. I think he worked at Westside School District for quite a while, and then he ended up kind of moving up. But he's done really well for himself. And then Justin Aquino, also a chef, and he helped open up many restaurants and things like that. But they speak solely highly of you all the time, and like, oh, we love Caryl. Caryl was awesome, for us in high school and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
no, I love those kids.
yeah, I
And
did
they
too.
knew it.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I commanded a lot of respect. And those kids did not want to get in trouble. They would rather, if they had to go see the dean, that was okay. But they didn't want to walk past me. They didn't want me to know they were in trouble. We had a different relationship with the kids and myself.
oh yeah,
I think you need that. You need to have that respect when people love you. You
Yes.
know, you can't just have people walk over you.
Oh, no, nobody
can't have
walked
that.
over me. Oh, no. Well, one time I took a bunch of kids to Mammoth, and when I got on the bus, I said, this is what you have to do, because if you drink or you do any of those kind of things, I'm calling your parents, and I'm leaving you there, and they can come get you, because you can't be doing this.
Yeah, and you meant it.
Yes, I meant it, and they knew I meant it. Mm-hmm. But we would have a good time, It's there'd be a lot of other parents besides just me, going along. But I always was the cook, so they always had plenty of food, and they always know, if you go with me, I always have plenty of food, always.
Yeah,
Even the kids, even my own kids, they always knew, we'd have food.
yeah,
Because one time we didn't have food, and nobody would stop and let us eat. And so that was the end of that. We always carried food. So anyway, no, I love those kids, and they knew it.
yeah. And I get that feeling whenever I would speak to them, and they would bring you up, and they would talk about you. It was always in a very high light. And going back to Ron, Ron has told me a lot of stories about Grandpa Godey, which is your dad.
Yes.
And that he was a big mentor to Ron,
Yes.
when Ron was growing up, and that a lot of the values and things that he took from your dad.
Yes.
And, I think that's also your strong relationship that you have with Ron,
Yes.
and you guys you have a very tight bond. I can see how you guys are all very similar in that way.
Yes.
But Ron loves his mom, and I'll tell everybody that, like, you don't mess with his mama. Because he loves her to death, and he goes and picks her up.
Yep.
He'll come down for a visit, and he'll drive her back. Never complains, and
Yep.
he's happy to do it because he gets to see and spend time with his mom.
And actually, I have that same relationship with all my children.
Yeah,
And my grandchildren.
yeah, but a little bit
Yeah.
more with Ron. I'm just. And,
I don't think
and Lori, I'm joking.
And that's very true. I mean, all your grandchildren, I think, would do the same thing. Like, if anybody, you said you needed anything, we'd all make time in our day
Yes.
to just
Yes. And
come by and help
I
you
do
out.
feel that, But, luckily for me, even at my age, I'm still able to do, take care of myself. I have a little golf cart I run around town in, and I love that little golf cart. It's all refurbished and looks brand new, and it's painted Dodger blue, and I have a Dodger license plate that Rebecca gave me, and so it's a cool car.
That's awesome. Well,
Something I also like to just brag about with you to other people, like how physically fit you are, how much you exercise in a day.
I
because
exercise
it's extremely
every day.
important.
It's very important. I have a sit-down bicycle. What do they call it? Something.
Stationary bike.
Yeah, no, not that. It's got another word. It starts with an R. I forget what it is. But anyway, Ron and Jerry bought it for me, or Jerry bought it, and Ron put it together. And I ride that thing 50 minutes every day. And then I do a lot of resistant bands and a lot of floor exercises, and it keeps me going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a PSA to everybody. Make sure that you exercise when you get older, because
That's
it is
right.
the number one thing that puts off dementia, Alzheimer's, any neurodegenerative disease.
Yes.
Exercise and talking to people.
Right.
Do both those things, you'll be okay.
Yes.
You need to
yes.
And she
stimulate-
does both of those things
Yes.
very well.
Because if you don't exercise, you're more liable to fall.
Mm-hmm.
You just no, you have to exercise.
Yeah, and you need to stimulate your brain too.
Yes,
You need to
yes.
do, puzzles or read.
Yes,
and you
I
do
play a
things
lot of computer games.
Yeah, a lot of computer games. She stays active in that.
Yeah,
farm
because then
town.
I make friends all over the world with Farm Town.
yeah.
And I don't know them, but you feel like you know because you're talking with them every day.
Exactly.
It's fun.
One of my other earliest memories was when I first started dating Christy. It was that Michael was really young, and Michael would come visit you on the summer, stay like a
Yes.
week at your house,
Yes.
and then he would do the surfing.
Yes.
There you would put him in the little surfing classes
Yes.
and stuff like that.
Yes.
And I always thought that was so cool. I was like, man, I wish I was young so I could stay with her for a week, and that was my grandma, and I could be doing surfing lessons. But I always thought that was really cool, and I feel like you love everybody, and I know you love everybody equally. I can feel it.
Yes.
But you always tend to make people feel more special. So I think sometimes people will say, I'm grandma's favorite. I'm grandma's favorite. Mom's my favorite. Things like that. But I think it's because you make everybody feel special in their own way. I thought that was super cool that Michael did that. Michael, what are your fondest memories of when you used to stay with her for the week that you can kind of bring up and enlighten people about?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so funny. Of course, going to the surfing lessons, and she's just stone's throw away from the beach, which is the coolest thing ever. So when I'd come home, from surfing lessons, or we just hang out, spend some time together.
Play cards.
Play cards. And for some reason, this just sticks out, is watching like a Daniel Boone.
Oh yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
my
yes. Yeah.
gosh.
Yes.
I don't know, positive role male models,
Yes. Yes. Oh, we only want strong people.
Absolutely.
We have to have strong people. And then if there are weak people, then we bring them in and we make them strong people.
Absolutely.
You can't have no wishy-washy. No slackers. No.
Yeah, you've taught many people how to become strong.
That's right.
I feel like.
That's right.
Yep.
There was one kid at Paraclete. He was president of the school, and he needed help.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would get him in the office every morning, and I would read to him what he was going to be reading, and then I'd have him read again. And I says, because when you get strong, because when you get out there in that football field, you're going to feel this. And when spring comes and you're the pitcher, you're going to be nobody's going to be able to touch you. And he believed me. And he got so strong, and when the football season came, he was so good. And then baseball season, he was the best pitcher. And then when Facebook came along, he sent me a message. He says, you know what? You made me what I am today. He says, I will always remember how you made me strong. And it's those are just important things. And people need to help these kids, When you find somebody that needs a little bit of attention, give it to them. Be their mentor, or foster them, or do something to help them, because it works wonders.
Yeah, and I like going back to the kindness thing, and it's the kindness thing all over again. Is that I do think that we live in a very hard world,
Yes.
and there's a lot of negativity out there, and it's easy to be negative, but it takes effort to be positive and to be nice to people too. And I think that goes a lot further along for people in their life and makes impactful strides in people's life when you have somebody that comes into their life that's a positive role model. And like you said, somebody reached out to you and said, I am who I am because of you.
Yes.
That's like,
yes.
I don't think you can get a better gift than that.
No, I can't. And that's like I say, the rewards keep coming. But see, I think it's easier to be kind than to be negative. I mean, I find something good in everything. And if it's really, really bad, then I just stay away,
That's exactly how I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
I surround myself with people that I find myself to be similar with as far as how positive they are, how nice they are, how kind-hearted they are. I can care less when it comes to political stuff. I can care less to what their beliefs are, what their religions are. I don't care.
Yeah.
As long as I know that they have a good heart, they're
That's
good.
right.
They're good with me, and I'll surround myself with them. But I can't be around people that are negative or always talking down to people and things like that.
No.
That just doesn't fill my soul with any positivity or happiness. So
No.
yeah. One thing, one other thing I want to bring up before I switch roles back with Ron here, but is that every year, Christmas time, you had a friend named Ray. Rest his soul. Obviously,
Yes.
he's no longer here with us, but he was quite the painter. And
Oh, yes.
he was
watercolor
paint, and you would always give us a calendar.
Yes.
And you shared some of his artwork with us over the years. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that was always special to me when you'd always give us those calendars and things like that.
Well, he had some pictures in the calendar. Some of them were other people in Carpinteria that would make them. But Ray he could paint a picture, and it could tell a story almost, and towards the end there, he didn't want to paint anymore. He was, getting older. But this guy that had the hot dog stand down by the beach, he wanted Ray to do that. And Ray said, no, he didn't want to do that. I said, oh, come on. Now you get in. And he was he was always in a wheelchair because he had polio when he was 29, and he broke his leg like 14 times. And the 14th time I happened to be with him, and it was not good. But anyway, I got him down there, and he painted this. The last picture that he painted was of this guy's the hot dog stand. And it is one cool picture, and it tells a good story.
Yeah.
But no, and I would go visit him every day at 4 o'clock. I would go spend an hour with him, and then somebody else would go spend another hour with him at 5 o'clock, and somebody would go have dinner with him every night. He was an awesome friend. I mean, he had so much that he could have been negative, but he wasn't. Mm-hmm. He was always a happy guy and happy to see you. And no, it was great. It was great.
So, like I said, going back to this podcast, it's interviewing people that are impactful to us in our lives. And it was a common discussion of like, who do we want to bring on? And it was collectively between Ron, Michael, and myself was Caryl. We wanted to bring you on because obviously you can hear from all these stories. You've impacted thousands of lives over your years, being included in the school, to the church, to being in Carpinteria and having all your friends. That, it's good to sit here and to highlight you because you are very special to all of us in different ways and stuff. So we just
you want to make me cry?
Oh well, man! I'm telling you, you make us feel very special. And I think it's important when people have positive impacts on people in their lives that they hear that. So.
I still have my high school friends. We're still all together. Every week I send out a thing we call the tumbleweed because the tumbleweed is always blue in the Antelope Valley. Mm-hmm. And, if they have birthdays or somebody's sick or something, we always have a way of connecting with each other so that nobody ever feels alone.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's great. So so the next segment that we're going to cover here is going to call Rapid Questions. I'm going to switch really quick with Ron, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Okay.
But I want to say thank you so much for allowing me to talk with you a little bit on here, too.
Well, I get to talk to you whenever I want to.
Yes, you do. You have my number.
That's right.
Well, thank you for that, Josh. That was awesome. It was great seeing you and Michael interact with the matriarch of the higher advantage team, the higher family. And so we have a rapid fire questioning, and it's the questions, and we call ours quick pitch because we love baseball and associate the quick pitch with the baseball. All right, which would you prefer most, the desert or the beach?
Well, the desert has its own beauty, but I love the beach with the nice, cool breeze that comes off the ocean. You can't beat it.
And we're glad that you chose the beach.
Yes.
We are glad you chose the beach.
Yes, and everybody can come and visit.
Yeah, and we do. And what is your favorite color?
My favorite color is teal.
It's teal.
Can you tell? I got it on.
I know. For everybody that doesn't know my mom that well, she built a house up in Godey Terrace Estates, and it had teal carpet. And then there was a floor tile with grout that was teal. And the countertops that had tile had teal grout in the tile. And
then I got my house or my mobile home over at the beach, and I put teal carpet and teal in the grout also. And so I wanted it to look like my other
yeah,
house.
it's like you never moved.
That's right.
Just
Except I went from the desert to the beach.
yeah. What do you prefer, almond, walnut, or pecan?
I love almonds, and they're good for us. I think almonds, and maybe the other nuts too, but almonds help your cholesterol, they help your blood pressure, maybe it's because they're so good to eat. You just feel good eating almonds. At least I do. And I like roasted almonds best.
That's my favorite. Plain
I
roasted
like-
is good. I cook almonds in this. Plain roasted, roasted salted
Yes.
smoked. They're really
Yes.
good. And I used to pick them off the tree every once in a while when they were green, as they're maturing. Did you ever do that?
Oh yes, we would fill our sacks with our lunch sacks on the way to the bus. Then we'd eat them green. They were good
They are.
until they got a little bit hard. Then they were. But inside the nuts have when they're small, they're gel, and it's. I don't think I want to eat it now, but it was. At that time we ate it.
It was funny because they were a little bit tart when they're young like that.
And they almost taste like string beans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so. That's okay. Tastes like string beans to you. They're all good. And what is your favorite flower?
The Gerber daisy.
And what is that Gerber daisy?
Well, it's a daisy, but it's big, and they have beautiful colors, and they grow well in Carpinteria.
Everything grows well in carpenter.
Yes, yes. And I didn't know about Gerber daisies until I moved over there. So because they were plentiful over there.
They last all year long? They bloom all year long over there? Most of the year?
I'm not sure. Right now I don't have any, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And then for your whole life, what is your favorite food?
Mexican food.
Mexican food.
Enchiladas and Taco Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, Taco Tuesday.
Yeah.
If we had like a bowl of chips here and some salsa, we could
yeah,
do that.
yeah.
Maybe next time.
Yes.
Next time we'll do that.
Yeah.
All right. So before we wrap it up, my mom gave me this VHS tape, and Francis Godey, her dad, Michael's great-grandfather, my grandfather, sat down with someone from the Antelope Valley Press and recorded a bunch of history that Francis has been recorded. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it on today's medium so that everybody can have access to it if they want to. And that's going to be really cool. So I'll let everybody know when that happens. I just got this last night.
Yesterday.
All right. And my mom, Carol's sister, Mary Kay, wrote this book. It's called The Desert Almond Farmer. And it's available in at the fairgrounds on the Antelope Valley Rural Museum.
Yes.
Right there. It's around different places, too. But this is good information on agriculture in the Antelope Valley, history of the Antelope Valley, and it's really good. And if you can't get a copy of it there, message me, and I'll get with Mary Kay, and I'll get you a copy of that as well. So.
Actually, this book was made for young kids, so they know the value of agriculture, because they think the food comes from a can or something, and they don't realize what the farmer has to go through so that they can have all the good food.
And I think it's a joke sometimes when I see videos of people online. They say, like, "Oh yeah, just go to the store and get the food." Like,
Right.
I think they're joking, but they're serious that they
Yes.
don't understand, the impact of agriculture.
Right. Right.
And it's how much it's needed.
Yes.
You know.
In the preface of this book, she talks about when she first started to really want to have a fun life, because we had this car. I don't know where the car came from, but I was driving it. I was 13 years old. My two cousins are on the front fenders with guns. She's in the back seat. She's 6 years old. And I think, what were you doing with us anyway? She says, I just got in the car with you. Well, we were going through the desert and shooting jackrabbits, or they were. And I've been driving, and it's not.
Having good old fun.
Oh yeah, it wasn't safe.
Yeah,
But-
ranch fun in the
it was ranch fun.
mid-1900s.
Oh yeah, and like I was talking about, the grain fields were out there on 30th and Avenue P. Well, that's where we would run around these. There was nothing out there. When I was a kid, Palmdale had 150 people.
Mm-hmm.
There was nobody around.
It was all spread out.
It was all spread out. Yes.
Yeah.
The high school, there was only one high school, and the kids came from Boron, they came from Hesperia, they came from Gorman, they came from Acton. It was one school.
That was amazing.
Yes.
Very good. Very good.
So-
I think before we get into our final segment, I would love to, I think we'd all love to have you on again and
And I will be
potentially
glad
do,
to come.
yeah, do like a chronology of Caryl, because
That's a lot of stuff.
it's a lot of stuff and it's just cool to hear.
And it's still all up here.
Exactly.
That's really
It's still there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're very good. So
Yeah.
if you like the podcast, subscribe, hit like, comment below.
Absolutely. Before we let Caryl go,
Yes.
Grandma Caryl,
Yes.
we got to hear her favorite quotes.
We heard it once, but we're going to hear it again. What's your favorite quote?
Absolutely. because it's-
Kindness
yeah,
never goes out of style.
Kindness never goes out of style.
That's my favorite one.
so
absolutely.
over the years, I've collected a bunch of words of wisdom and good sayings from all kinds of different people. Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Earl Nightingale, all kinds. And so I've got like 100 of them, which is really cool. I've got some up on the walls in my in our office. And I have one that I wanted to share with you as well. When you set goals and review them daily, you create your future in advance. So it's always good to remember, review your goals and on a regular basis, and more than likely, you're going to achieve them. All right.
And one more for me. So with a lot of people don't even know, June is a mental health month for men. And a lot of men just, go in silence. But one of my favorite quotes is from Winston Churchill, or it's attributed to Winston Churchill. And that's, if you're going through hell, keep on going. Because you don't want to
love
stop
that.
there.
I love that.
Absolutely.
No, you don't want to stop there.
So when you...
No, you actually when you find yourself in that type of thing, you go find somebody who's positive, and you can come out of it.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I know mental health is bad, but you gotta be around people that are healthy for you and not going to drag you down.
For sure.
And stay away from the drugs. Stay
Yes.
away.
That's it.
You know.
Stay away from
Absolutely.
the drugs.
And I mean, if any of you guys out there that, need something, reach out to me, I'll more than gladly, be there with you.
Me too.
There you go. Grandma Caryl too.
Yes.
For sure. And if you need to get a hold of my mom, call me. All right. So remember, for higher expectations and higher standards, choose the higher advantage, real estate, sales, and service. Take care. Be safe out there, and have a great day.
That's fine. All right.
And it's going to be a
Great
good
job.
Thank you, Mom. Oh, we're going to do one more thing before we're finished with this part.